Well, hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I want to talk about the current developments coming out of Pakistan regarding its deals with the Iranian regime in helping to de escalate the tensions between Iran and the United States. So, without further ado, let's get into it. There's a lot of buzz around X at the moment regarding Pakistan and its efforts to help de escalate the tensions in the Gulf region between the United States, Israel, and Iran. And I've got a few posts from X that I'm going to attach and go through just to give you a little breakdown of what exactly is going on. Now, I've got a little post here from Adi Achint at Dev Talks, a really brilliant YouTube podcaster. Go and have a look at his channel. He does some amazing work, and if you want to, get good, solid information on what is going on, it's a good channel to follow. So I highly recommend checking out Dev Talks by Adi Achint. Anyway, on X, he's posted, this is the reality of Bloomberg. Pakistanis in total have 20 odd tankers. Are you telling me all are in the Strait of Hormuz? Now, that is in response to a Bloomberg article that was published saying that Iran has agreed to allow 20 more ships under the Pakistani flag to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Pakistan Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar says in an X post. So, the fact that the Pakistanis are claiming that the Iranians have allowed these tankers to go through. Firstly, I must stress that there's been no denial or confirmation from the Iranian regime. We do know that a split and a widening rift is occurring within the Iranian regime, that is between the bureaucracy headed by Masoud Pezeshkian, the president, and the IRGC Vaidi, because there seems to be a disconnect. Each one is blaming the other for the current state of affairs within Iran, and Vaidi has come out and leveled criticism at the bureaucracy in Iran for not having acted sooner to alleviate the worries of the populace when the protesters began their uprisings prior to the war kicking off. And subsequently, we know that Masoud Pezeshkian has tried to rein in these IRGC leaders, and he's told them that the Iranian economy cannot withstand another month of bombardment by the United States and Israel, because it is going to go into total collapse. So we haven't heard anything coming in regarding these 20 ships from the Iranians. However, the Iranians, if you recall, Donald Trump had said earlier that he had received a great present from the Iranians and 8 ships. He subsequently let out that the present was the passage of 8 oil tankers coming through the Straits of Hormuz, and then another 2 tankers were thrown in for good measure by the Iranians. The Iranians subsequently coming out and criticizing the Pakistanis for lying to them regarding the transportation of oil through the straits and then handing it over to the Americans. So, the truth lies somewhere in between. If the Pakistanis are indeed negotiating, we're going to get into that fairly shortly with the next few posts that I'm going to put up. Then you have Siddhant Sibal, who's a reputed journalist within India, and I think he works for WION, has posted that Trump reposted Dar's 20 Pakistan vessels via Hormuz message. Trump last week claimed Pakistan flag vessels with energy are being gifted to the US by Iran. Now, Ishaq Dar's message was, I am pleased to share a great news that the government of Iran has agreed to allow 20 more ships under the Pakistani flag to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. 2 ships will cross the strait daily. This is a welcome and constructive gesture by Iran and deserves appreciation. It is a harbinger of peace and will usher stability in the region. This positive announcement marks a meaningful step towards peace and will strengthen our collective efforts in that direction. Dialogue, diplomacy, and such confidence-building measures are the only way forward. So, again, a lot of doubling down on what the Pakistanis are saying. Again, no confirmation, no denial from the Iranians. Then I've got an article by the Wall Street Journal. Now, this is interesting because the Wall Street Journal says Pakistan, once isolated by Washington for harboring Osama bin Laden, is assuming a surprisingly prominent position in the multinational effort to push the US and Iran towards the negotiating table. So, this is really remarkable because there's a few ways of looking at this. The Pakistanis engaging in these negotiations, and this article coming out in the Wall Street Journal could be a plant because the Americans are now urging the Pakistanis to do the rounds in terms of negotiations between the Gulf nations, Iran, and the United States. However, one has to also bear in mind there are broader ramifications for Pakistan regarding this. Let me be clear. The Pakistani establishment, together with the ISI and military, are not doing this out of the goodwill of their heart. In fact, they are heartless. Okay? There is nothing in this that they are doing for humanity. Pakistan has never done anything for humanity. It has done nothing for its own people. It is the number one state sponsor of terrorism. While it is perpetuating itself as this benevolent country, doing these great things, at the same time, don't forget Tulsi Gabbard has flagged it as a country that is pursuing intercontinental ballistic missiles with ranges in excess of 5,000 kilometers, capable of hitting the United States mainland.
However, the intelligence community assesses that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and Pakistan have been researching and developing an array of novel, advanced, or traditional missile delivery systems with nuclear and conventional payloads that put our homeland within range. The IC assesses that threats to the homeland will expand collectively to more than 16,000 missiles by 2035, from the current assessed figure of more than 3,000 missiles. Pakistan's long-range ballistic missile development potentially could include ICBMs with a range capable of striking the homeland.
Now, again, if India is their target, they don't need a 5,000 kilometer radius missile. The history and track record of Pakistan is that it is a state sponsor of terrorism. It has exported terrorism around the world, and it has always played a duplicitous game. It played the Chinese against the Americans when the Americans under Nixon and Kissinger wanted to pivot towards China at the expense of the Indians and the Russians. It played a duplicitous game when the Americans went into Afghanistan after the Soviet invasion. It played a duplicitous game when the Americans were giving it money during the Gulf, the war in Afghanistan, when they were taking on the Taliban, and it took money from the Americans and gave it to the Taliban and marginalized the Northern Alliance. And it played a duplicitous game against the Chinese and the Americans currently, and it's doing the same thing to the Iranians and the Saudis. So make no mistake, the Pakistani establishment is not doing this out of the goodness of its heart. There is no will, there is no generosity for mankind, there is no empathy for humanity. This government and this administration, this army and this intelligence network has zero empathy. It is a narcissist regime. It has zero empathy for anything but itself. It doesn't even have empathy for its own people. It will rather let its people suffer and stagnate and deteriorate into the depths of depravity rather than try and uplift its people. So when it tells you that it is doing this in the name of humanity, run as far away, because that is the furthest from the truth. The reason the Pakistanis, if they are actually engaged in this, is simply because they signed a defense mutual agreement with the Saudis. And the Saudis have called them up on this. And had they not had a vast number of Pakistani citizens working in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, they would have dropped the Saudis and the Gulf countries like a hot potato. It is only because of the remittances that come in from these countries that is keeping the Pakistani administration afloat. So again, you see that it cares not for its people, neither does it care for its fellow Muslim brethren. Because this is a country this is a chameleon. This is a country that will adopt any cloak in order to benefit. It's a mercenary. This is a mercenary masquerading as a country. Nothing else. There is nothing in this country that it exports to the world that has benefited humanity. Absolutely nothing. They continue to lie, deceit, thieve. They are nothing but a harbinger of doom on humanity. They've played this duplicitous game since time immemorial. I tell you, this is a government, a country that was set up on hatred. When you have a rotten foundation like that, anything you subsequently build on top of that is not going to be strong, because the roots are rotten. Now, when they tell you that they are doing this for humanity, make no mistake, it is hogwash. Because if they do not, they are straddling a very difficult line. They are being massacred. The Pakistani military is being massacred by the BLA within Balochistan. Khwaja Asif himself said they are unable to control the landmass relating to Balochistan. 46% of Pakistan is made up of Balochistan, and that is the Wild West at present. The Pakistani military have no way of controlling what is going on there. That is why the Chinese have stopped a lot of the CPEC projects, because the Pakistani military could not guarantee the safety of Chinese citizens working in that region. They are facing an insurgency within the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. They are having to deal with Imran Khan's party and the fallout from their disastrous arrest of this man. Think whatever you want of him. It's immaterial. The point is, an injustice has been done to Imran Khan, and it should not be allowed to be perpetuated. Yet the world turns a blind eye. At the same time, they have to fortify their border against India, because every time they have a problem within the country, they launch cross-border terrorist attacks in India. So they need to always be on their feet there. And then you are asking them to take on the Iranians. Pakistan has a sizable Shia population. You saw what happened when the Ayatollah Khamenei was assassinated. There was mass protests within Pakistan. Some Pakistani citizens tried to storm the American embassy. I think 11 or 15 or 9 of them were shot dead, and some by the US Marines, some by the Pakistani police. So the Pakistani establishment is straddling a very thin, dangerous line here. Because should this war escalate, and it is going to escalate, should this war escalate, the Saudis are already sick and tired of calling in the favor that is guaranteed by the mutual defense pact that the Pakistanis signed with the Saudis. And that was for money. They've borrowed so much of money, they leveraged to China. The country of Pakistan is leveraged to China to the hilt. Everything they own and don't own has been leveraged to the Chinese. They owe the Saudis money. They owe the IMF. They keep surviving on IMF bailouts. And this last bailout of 1.2 billion that was released from the 7 billion package was a drip feed that Donald Trump has allowed the IMF to give the Pakistanis, because this is one president within the United States that has realized the true nature of the Pakistani state. And Donald Trump, being the businessman that he is saying to them in so many words, I will only give you as much as you deserve in terms of your performance. Previous American administrations wrote blank checks to the Pakistani administration. So Musharraf and Zia and all these other morons before and after have made a lot of money off the Americans. Donald Trump has come in and said, listen, you perform, I will give. You don't perform, you get nothing. I cut you off. And this is where you find Munir and Shehbaz Sharif pandering to the request. I mean, Shehbaz Sharif is so high up Donald Trump's ass, it's not even funny. Even Asim Munir. So again, I'm telling you that these negotiations being highlighted in Twitter and being promulgated by the press and the media is not out of the goodwill of the Pakistani establishment's heart. Because as I said before, this Pakistani establishment has no heart. This is being done to save its own face and to keep its regime alive. Because should they go in against the Iranians, number one, the Iranians will eat them for breakfast. The Pakistani military is nothing in the face of an aggressive Iranian army. The Iranians have been fighting for the last 47 years. The Pakistanis have been sitting around trying to play catch up. Everywhere they go and poke their finger, they get hammered. You know, you've seen photos, you've seen videos. I've got it in some of my videos where during recent BLA attacks, the Pakistani soldiers were crying because their government disowns them when they are captured.
किस तरह बोल सकती है कि ये हमारे बंदे नहीं है ये कार्ड की आर्मी का ये ना चनाजी कार्ड मेरा देख ले ये भी पाकिस्तान ने मुझे बना के दिया ये अभी किस तरह कह रहा है कि ये हमारे बंदे नहीं है
आपने किस इलाके में ड्यूटी की?
मैंने सिर्फ पनाकिल में ड्यूटी की और इधर अभी खुजदार में आया 1.5 महीना हो गए।
किस तरह बोल सकती है कि ये हमारे बंदे नहीं है ये कार्ड की आर्मी का ये ना इन्होंने हमें बना के दिया ना हमने खुद तो थोड़ा बना लिया ये चनाजी कार्ड मेरा देख ले ये भी पाकिस्तान ने मुझे बना के दिया ये अभी किस तरह कह रहा है कि ये हमारे बंदे नहीं है।
So they have nothing that they can go up against the Iranians for. And God help them if they have to take up arms against the Iranians. The flip side of that is that they side with the Iranians, they then are taking on the Saudis, dishonoring their pact. Those remittances will be cancelled immediately. Loans will be called up. Pakistan will spiral into descent because they don't even have the money to keep the lights on. There's no water in Pakistan, no gas in Pakistan, no electricity in Pakistan, food shortages. The average Pakistani is suffering. But these elites keep stealing. And then they run the risk of falling afoul to the United States. The problem they have is that now they have to do the bidding of the Satan that they call Israel. And they've spent their entire country's history. Since the day Pakistan was formed, it has been harping about 2 points. India and the Hindus are bad, and the Israelis are just as bad. Now, when the people find out that they're doing the bidding of the Israelis, they have a very big problem. So this is why they are actively involved in these negotiations, and they need to see a success in these negotiations, because anything but a success inches the Pakistani establishment closer to failure, closer to disillusion, and this country will then split up. They are bursting at the seams right now, being held together by a little bit of plastic tape. And even the slightest mistake will cause this country to implode. So again, while they might come out as being honorable, and while the Wall Street Journal seems to be celebrating them and, touting them, these are all accolades that they can put up on their wall. But the reality of it is, they are doing this because they face an existential threat to their survival. This regime will not survive. This military will not survive. And this intelligence apparatus will not survive should the truth come out to their people. And this is why they keep their people in a state of ignorance. So I want to thank you for spending time with us. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe, as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.